I believe so. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Barbara Gould, Finance Director. We're here to do our Community Budget Forum. There are some summary handouts over here on the side if you're interested. And so this presentation just follows the two budget workshops. And when we get to end of a department or fund, if you have any questions, please let me know so we can keep the questions at the relevant spot, okay? So on our first budget workshop, we started with the general fund, the enterprise funds of stormwater sanitation, and the streets and road funds. So we're going to go in that order again. After that, we went into the permitting, insurance, marina, special projects, public improvement, and CRA funds. And here you see on the screen some important dates. So right now we're at the Community Forum, August 22nd. On Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, August 26th, there will be a third budget workshop for the CIP. After that, we will move into the first public hearing on September 8th and a final public hearing on September 16th, where the budget will be approved by the Town Commission. So during the development of the budget, we wanted to make sure that we were funding public safety properly. We wanted to make sure that we were trying to reinvest by trying to restrict some revenue into reserve accounts. We are hoping to start funding significantly our infrastructure, such as sidewalks and roads, and as we go through that, you will see that we have done that. We want to ensure that we're providing salaries that allow the town to grow and retain professional staff. And we're also looking to prepare for potential reductions with the possible passing of Amendment 3, the homestead exemption. This year, our town's ad valorem increased, and you will see that it increased $2.4 million. Additionally, we're looking to spend a little bit more than $1.6 million on roadway and paving between both the CRA and the town, so it's not restricted to the CRA this year. We are trying to increase some unrestricted funds, and we went through a very strong exercise where we had a version of the budget. We cleaned it up. We asked everybody to go back and try and cut an additional 10%. In some places, departments were able to do more. In others, they weren't able to do very many because you can't. There's certain things like bank charges. I can cut them, but they're still going to appear, so it doesn't. It's not an appropriate exercise there. And as a reminder, the marina, thank you, Jason, owes the general fund $3.3 million. And while that is part of our reserve, it is unspendable because we need to have the marina repay it first. Some highlights in the budget. There's one that's not on the list. I'll start with that one. On Wednesday, we heard from our insurance agent. We had budgeted for a 15% increase in health insurance. The original estimate was 40% increase, and they have got that down to a 28% increase by looking at a different insurer. We're hoping we can get that down a little bit more, but the difference between what we have now and the new rate at 28% is $252,000 across the town. So right now we're about $110,000 short in this budget because we've accounted for only 15% of it. So this is a draft. There is more work to be done, and that will happen between now and the first budget hearing. This budget proposes a 2% COLA effective October 1, a 3% merit on an employee's anniversary date. We have frozen a few positions, and there were several positions from last year that were unfrozen. Unfrozen was the assistant town manager, the assistant finance director, the purchasing specialist, and the community development technician still remains frozen at this time. We have 3 position updates. We have elected to propose an amended pay grade for the marketing specialist in communications and grants. We're raising the pay grade from 90 to 120. There is no projected increase in costs. A new position, the IT help desk technician in information technology, was a part-time temporary position, and we're converting that to a full-time position and setting a pay grade of 75. That has a projected cost of $58,000. Because the position was temporary, it offered no benefits. And so as a full-time position, it will offer benefits. The last one is a reclassification / promotion to our planner. We're hoping to rename that position as a senior or principal planner. It would change the pay grade from 100 to 140, provide additional duties, and a projected increase of $20,875. This year, we have a frozen position of community development technician, the part-time planner, and a dock attendant. I talked a little bit earlier about the exercise to, again, reduce departments and budgets. So you have a list there on your screen showing the general fund has set aside $213,000, stormwater $606,000, sanitation $15,000, and marina $70,000. So that would include any frozen positions in those dollars, but we're trying to prepare as best we can for whatever happens in November. On my next screen, I had shown this chart in the setting of the maximum millage rate back in July. We tossed this in here just as an FYI so that you can see millage rates going back to 2005. And the note at the bottom says between 2005 and 2014, those millage rates included fire service. After 2014, it was done in a separate MSTU, and the rate has been 3.4581 all the way back to that point. Here you've got a summary of total estimated property taxes or ad valorem dollars, and I've provided 5 years worth of details so you can see in 2027 we've jumped up $2.5 million from 2026. That is in part to Nautilus coming online. We then have to segregate out the CRA's portion of those dollars. So you'll see that in the next section. This year it will be $2.337452. So after giving the CRA its portion, we will have a $6,334,000 to budget. I've provided some major revenues and summarized those for you, and you can see that they are just slightly below last year. Part of that is because the building department, or the community development department that does permitting, we have taken that piece and moved it to its own internal service fund. Permitting fees that are collected are to be used only for permitting. And this will help us make sure that we are complying with that rule. Otherwise, it's a difficult calculation, and you just want to, this will make it easier for us. On this last screen here, I have total revenues broken up by type. So you'll see that our budget this year is going to be $16,683,275 in the general fund. Are there any questions on revenues? Okay. Next, we have the Town Commission. In this, you'll see an increase in personnel expenditures and an increase in operating expenditures. We proposed to increase the stipend, and we had increased promotional activity. Some discussion in the earlier budget workshop. We'll have this revisited in our final budget workshop, so that may or may not be the final numbers there. Are there any questions or comments about Town Commission? Town Manager? In the Town Manager, it looks like there's a significant budget increase, but this is because we've put back in the Assistant Town Manager position and related expenses. So otherwise there's very little change in numbers that are there. Travel and training would increase, as well as salaries and benefits. Those would be the increases there. Any questions? Human Resources. In the Human Resources Department, we are still budgeting for one person. We've done a lot of decreasing in hiring costs because of improvements to the process, changing the way we did certain steps, save money because you were doing it on fewer people. And so again, there's just a small amount of increase in personnel expenditures, and then we have put into place some employee recognition items that have also hit the budget for this year. Question?
Just one about the process for discussion today. We just got these 15 minutes ago. It's very difficult to interpret what's going on department by department the way it's structured right now. I may have some general broad stroke questions. Can I ask them at some point this morning after this presentation, or I'm just asking about process, please?
So process, sure, if it's separate from any specific department, most definitely.
Mostly.
Okay.
Mostly. Thank you.
Barbara, real quick. We're going to probably get through these slides with the departments fairly quickly so that way we do open it up more for general conversation. But if there is any questions regarding a department, in the budget, and one of the things that maybe Barbara can talk about too is, on the website, the budget is a lot more defined than what we're showing here. It has all of the different justification tabs for all of the operating and capital costs. So, if you have a question on any of those, interrupt, or as we go through that department, that's when it's appropriate. And then anything after, hopefully we'll be able to get through pretty quickly and have those broad, more, larger discussions. Yeah, absolutely.
Town clerk, the major change there is no election. So we save a significant amount of dollars by having no election costs. In legal, these are the estimates that have been provided by the attorney with what he expects for fees to be, including lawsuit expenditures for the current year. Communications and grants. We had proposed a potential quarterly meetings with mayors to include one department head to save us from the cost of sending quarterly information, quarterly newsletters to you. The cost of printing and, of course, the cost of postage has risen substantially over these last few years, and we think it would be a better use of our dollars. Additionally, what we're doing with department heads that don't already have a town cell phone is issuing them a town cell phone. Currently, those that don't have a town cell phone have a stipend of $60 a month for use of their personal phone for business purposes, and this we expect will save us about $250 a department head going forward. In information technology, this year we took all software, with the exception of the enterprise funds, and moved it into information technology. So you do see an increase in costs there, instead of having it scattered throughout the general fund, something in grounds, something in finance, something in vehicle maintenance. It's all in one spot. And it gives us a better idea of what our technology budget is. And again, in IT, we have converted that help desk technician to a full-time position, and those costs are included in the personnel expenditures. Any questions? The Marina P3 project, this was a way of tracking internal costs related to moving forward with the agreement, and because of the situation with the lawsuit, we're not doing anything there. We're not proposing anything at this point. In finance, we've added back the procurement specialist frozen position, and we've added back the assistant finance director at a full year because it had been frozen for half a year. And just as an FYI, when you're comparing last year's numbers to this year's, assistant directors are shown on the executive salary line as opposed to the regular salary line in the past. So you may see shifts there when you're trying to compare numbers.
Barbara, can you go back to that real quick? Can we talk about the need for a procurement specialist? I mean, and it's not a new position, it's a reclassification of a position.
Sure. So the procurement specialist, we had an accountant position in finance that retired. And Rich has been very open to new ideas about who does what, where. So each time there's been an opening, you're able to go, can I do this? And the procurement process, it's cumbersome, long, complicated, and time-consuming. And to have all the different department heads all trying to do that process properly themselves, taking a considerable amount of time from the town clerk's office to assist us with that, we had proposed last year to hire a procurement specialist. And this person would shepherd those invitations to bids, requests for quotations, requests for qualifications, all of those that run through the website. It would also help us better follow the steps in our procurement policy. So we are anxious to hire this person because it's so easy to mess up a step along the way where you're looking at something. Is it a verbal quote, a written quote? Sometimes you start off one way, then it has to go the other. And this will just help us do it better.
And Barbara, real quick, you know, that position is more of a public trust type of position. It's one that ensures that public dollars, taxpayer dollars, are being competitively bid out, and that we're using those dollars in a way that we're finding the lowest bids or the best bids that meet our needs. And so it gives us an opportunity to make sure, not only take away some of that responsibility from some of our other staff that may not do that all the time, or it takes them away from what their normal job is, to allow that one person to, on the larger bids and the larger spending of dollars, to make sure that we're doing it in a way that the public values, or that we value the public dollars that we receive. So to me, it's really a public trust type of position, and it's one that I think is critical for us going forward.
Any questions? Public safety. This is our contract with Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, along with the license plate reader cameras. And if you had been at last Wednesday's meeting, or this past Wednesday's meeting, you will see that the captain had reported on statistics for the prior year and found that things look very nice. They're trending in a good direction here. So we want to maintain a good, solid budget to allow the captain to do the things they need to do to keep us safe. Emergency management, we maintain a contract with I'm sorry.
That's okay. I would like to comment on the sheriff.
Okay.
We have wonderful sheriffs in this town. I appreciate them. In fact, one lives on our street, and I talk about things with him. But anyway, could there be a discussion? I don't know whether it's a time and place, but it might be that in the contract that they improve the speed regulation somehow through the sheriff's department, and I know they can't be everywhere at one time. So could there be a discussion on how to control the speed? In Lake Park, we have a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, but it's like very often 40. So I'm wondering, is this the time and place to talk to the sheriff's department about it? I love our new captain. I haven't spoken to her because I thought I would mention it here first. But that, to me, for the people, for the residents, would be a priority. It would be a priority for the town as far as the quality of life. Could there be, is this the time to have a discussion with them? Not me, but, the people that are important.
So this would not be the place to do that, but there could very well be a discussion. They'll provide that service within the existing contract. They just may shift some duties somewhere along the way, do a little bit less of that to do a little bit more of that type of, yeah. So not here, but definitely it's a discussion. Yes.
They could bring that up, or else the town could discuss it with the captain.
That would be what we'd start with, yes.
That would be great. That would be great. Thank you.
Good morning. I just had a quick question about the cameras that are for the license plate readers. There's been a lot of talk on the local news channels. Is that similar to the flock cameras?
It is the flock.
And they're talking a lot about transparency. Perhaps they're being misused. And I heard one of the reporters state that they have to have some sort of a warrant to be able to obtain those records. So I just want to clarify that the use of those cameras, we are following the regulations. And what are the regulations, and where would we be able to find out what that is?
So that would not really be a budget question, so inappropriate for this meeting. But we could get Captain Sanford to comment on it, and she did on Wednesday night as well. Talked about the cameras and the use of them.
Okay, yeah, I was watching it at home on TV, but it didn't fully address, how they access those records, how the individual officers, if they need to use them in a certain case. So I didn't know if that was part of their budget.
So we can look to see if they can provide additional information about procedure.
Thank you.
Welcome. So emergency management, we maintain a contract with a consultant that will help shepherd us through any claims that we need to file in the result, in result of a storm. Also, he helps us make sure our procedures and our compliance on the front end is in place. And he's available for multiple items. Several years ago, remember COVID? He was able to help us shepherd one cost request for reimbursement through 2 levels of denials, and we were ultimately reimbursed, saving the town was like $24,000. Public Works Administration, again, just the operations manager, which is a position in this budget, is part of the executive salaries. And a reminder that you'll see decreases where software was moved to IT. We also asked Public Works Administration to take the time to look at some of their shared costs, like office supplies, and divide them up amongst the departments to better present the departments in total. And so they have done that, so you see a bit of a decrease in operating expenditures there.
Proposed increase in personal expenditures. Expenditures is the word I'm curious about. That's not personnel wages,
Well,
expenditures.
writing a paycheck is an expenditure.
Okay. So wouldn't that more likely be the 3% merit and the 2% COLA than the 1.1% here?
And don't forget, there's a 15% increase in health insurance built in there. There is a percent built in there for FRS increase. The dental went up. Workers' comp will change. So it can't just be that 5%.
So where does 1.1 come from?
So it comes from employees have the ability to choose their health insurance. So if we had budgeted for a single plan and then they moved to a family plan or a spouse plan or a children plan, the cost is higher. We may have had somebody who was taking the insurance and make a move toward not using our insurance at all, which could then turn the costs lower. So those changes, we just look at those pieces in there. The operations manager was a promotion that happened in the 25, 26 year at the very beginning, so there was a salary change there because
That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Perfect sense. I would have thought that the 1.1 would be higher,
Oh,
considering all those issues.
Jamie, we can raise your budget and the personnel costs.
No, I didn't say that. I just thought the reporting number would be higher than 1.1.
Yeah, and it actually will be once we get the rest of the insurance in there.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Grounds. In ground expenditures, again, here's where the personnel costs stayed, right around that 5% budget. Again, reminder that software is budgeting in contractuals, that was budgeted in contractual services, has been moved to IT. And we've also decreased some telephone costs by, instead of having a data plan for tablets that the grounds employees use to communicate and keep track of work orders, we've gone to using a hotspot on their telephones. And as a general initiative, we're starting to look at the different contracts we have, making sure when they're coming up for renewals to investigate if there's perhaps a better cost out there by changing instead of renewing a contract. And we're doing that in all departments where we can. I'm sorry, I saw movement. Did you have a question? Okay, that's fine. Bring it back. I looked down, but then I caught it out of the corner of my eye.
Because I didn't know if this would be the opportunity to have a conversation, but you did just mention reviewing contracts that are already existent.
Correct.
I noticed that we're using True Green to use pesticides at the local parks, and recently it was just done at the Lottie May Park, and I have concerns about that being not very environmentally friendly. And I know it's being also used at Kelsey Park, and we do have some drainage runoff into the Intercoastal Waterway, and there is a lot of sea life there. And if they are reviewing, would they consider some more environmental friendly options? And I've had a conversation prior.
Public Works is saying yes, they would consider
reviewing.
reviewing.
Extremely important.
Jamie, can you?
Okay, you're welcome. Yes, we have spoken about this, and absolutely, as we go into reviewing our contracts, we will look into that aspect of being more environmental conscious and in our applications. So yes, absolutely.
And the key point to my concern is that the environment and, what goes into the environment, even like the worms, the grubs, those are all something that, the birds and the butterflies and all of the, animals, squirrels and rabbits and everything feed upon, and we're killing those or we're poisoning them, and now they're being transported to, airborne pests.
I understand.
And
It's a cycle, and it starts with us.
It's very concerning. I watched it happen, just last week at Lottie Mae Park, and I was very disturbed about what was going on.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jamie.
Okay, I'm looking at the ground maintenance total expenditures. I'm looking from 2023 to 2027. How much more area are we maintaining to cover that large expenditure from 2023? Is there more area? Are there more projects that we're maintaining?
Jamie. Thank you.
Commissioner Tyler, the answer is we have the same areas, but we have more specialized maintenance that we perform in these areas, and the associated cost that has risen on material and such and forth. But essentially, we're maintaining the same scale of our projects, which are our parks, our facilities. There has not been any increase because the additional increase, like, Burt Boxton, is covered under the contract.
Has the Lakeshore area, that's been on for a while, the knowledge area, we don't have to maintain that area?
No, we don't maintain the Nautilus.
Can- Ms. Taylor, could you repeat the question? Because when you're not on the microphone, it just, nobody that's watching on TV or on YouTube can hear it.
I was just questioning the increase from 23 to 2027 in the ground maintenance total expenditures, whether it covered the same area, both, has it been increased? But he said it is the same area, but it's higher costs because of different maintenance requirements. That's how I understood it.
And there's one other piece. When you're looking at 23, those are actuals. So if there were 3 vacant positions for 4 months, that is reflected in that lower number. Whereas always when we're budgeting, we're make the assumption that we'll have 100% of the staff 100% of the time.
Okay. I think it would be interesting when we're thinking about acquiring more assets to think about that would be a big increase in the area. We were talking about taking over different areas, that we have to be careful. I have to agree with Kelly the other day when she was talking about, she said that why would the town want to start in the real estate business, buying this and buying that and going through all that. And I agree with her totally. I think we have enough to handle with the same area that we had, that we're handling now. It's already increased that much. So I would just encourage, and that's fine, the budget is fine, is take care of what we have before we add to our plate in the town. I'm talking about the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Commissioner, just to add to what you just said, I do totally concur with your words and with your statement. Since I started with the town, one of the things that I've been conveying to our leaders is that not only should we look into the horizon to build, but it's also to understand the responsibility that comes with building something. Is that assuming that maintenance and having the proper resources, either in-house or the ability to contract that resource in order to maintain whatever we're building. And once we have a better understanding of what our main responsibility is in terms of our resources, then we have the ability to properly plan. When we don't know or we can't assume certain roles because of our resources, then we start stretching it, and that's where we start getting those gray areas that we can't properly maintain or provide the proper services. So,
Oh, and with the unsure future that we're facing, it's better to be cautious. It's a lot easier to stay out of trouble than to get out of trouble. And I see, and that's been my mantra forever.
Thank you. Next department in the general fund is facilities. These are the men that make sure the setup is done when it needs to be done, changed. The buildings are clean, they're maintained. You see a small increase. We have a capital outlay this year because we have tried to budget for new chairs for the dais and the conference room. It's a running joke here when you have to get there early because you want to get the chair that doesn't sink when you sit in it. Say again? You didn't get here early enough to change the chairs around.
Right, you're right. I was usually on time, but not early.
Vehicle maintenance. So there's a small increase in personnel expenditures at 5.34%. And again, we have lowered some of the operating costs because we are, again, moving software to IT and solving some of those telephone questions where can we cut this budget. And so we've, again, removed the data plans from the tablets and moved them onto the hotspots on the cell phones.
Can you also talk about how we're looking into some of the existing costs that are out of that division as well with leasing?
So one of the biggest costs in vehicle maintenance is the leasing, they'll call it the white fleet. So the pickup trucks that code enforcement drives, that grounds, facilities, administration, those costs. We're currently under a 5-year plan to lease those vehicles from Enterprise. And as we've gone back through and looked at our usage, of the cost, we're looking at better alternatives, proposing to purchase rather than release, and working on a plan to fund that with the minimal amount of excess costs, such as interest for financing. If we can start saving now or next year, so that when the vehicles start to come off a lease, we're just purchasing them directly. Because in a town this size, most of them don't drive very far over the course of a year. And it makes sense to hold on to the vehicles a little bit longer. We have a vehicle maintenance department who can care for them. And hopefully that could be a reduction in costs going forward. Community development. So this is where permitting was originally included, but it also has code enforcement, it has planning, it has business tax licenses in there. So we have taken several of the positions and apportioned them mostly here and some in that new planning department. So you'll see that the personnel costs, even with a proposed promotion and a position, don't change all that much, is because we're trying to establish what a permitting department costs us. In the future, the state is changing its laws, and it's going to, you can't set a permit fee based upon value. You're going to have to set it based upon the amount of time staff spend. So Nadia has been working toward those kind of details, trying to make sure that we're funding this properly. And one of those steps was to separate it out into its own fund. There is one other item, well, two. Currently, we have solicited proposals for an impact fee study and an update to our mobility plan. The funding that's in this current year budget is not looking to be sufficient to do those studies, so we have included an additional funding in this new budget to help finish the cost of those.
Barbara, if I could real quick jump in. So with regards to the mobility plan and the impact fees, one of the things that I noticed when I got here was we didn't have any impact fees. And so what was happening then is development was being, the cost of development or the impacts, those costs were being borne by our current residents. That just doesn't seem very fair. So one of the things that we talked about in the commission, gave direction to go forward with, is to look at that and start saying that those impacts that new development is placing on our community should be paid for by the new development. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at, and Nadia's, been running with that. Now, one of the problems with that is that we're under Senate Bill 180, and we may not be able to go forward with that because it becomes more restrictive for new development. In fact, Palm Coast was just recently sued, and they lost because they raised their impact fees. So these are some of the things where we're really looking at, and we're trying to be more mindful and take some of the costs off of our current residents and allow development to pay for itself or pay for the impacts. With regards to the mobility plan, of course, we had, in the past, we used to have transportation impact fees. We were allowed to go to a mobility fee by state law. The county still has impact fees. And one of the things that we're trying to do is expand our mobility plan or update our mobility plan so the areas that the county would normally take care of, county intersections, county roads, those kinds of things, as new development comes into our town, rather than those fees go to the county, and they can be used almost anywhere that the county chooses, except for here, we're trying to keep those dollars here so that we can then spend those dollars in the areas that we need to be able to use them. But again, we're in the same position of potentially not being able to do anything because of Senate Bill 180. Senate Bill 180 has been very, very destructive for us in being able to plan and plan for our future and be able to, I guess just be able to create a community or plan for a community that our commission and our community wants. So this is something that Nadia is working through. I really appreciate her working hard and the team that she has as her recommendation committee. But we're kind of stuck a little bit right now. But in case we can, we wanted to be able to do this right so that we can make sure that the fees that are charged are correct. And just so you have an understanding, some of the impact fees that we're looking at are public facilities, Nadia, police and fire, parks and recreation facilities. These are things right now that are coming out of our general fund. If Amendment 3 happens, where are those dollars going to come from if we need a new playground? Impact fees should be able to cover those, the new impacts that are happening. So we're really looking at how do we shift some of these costs away from our general fund and put them where they really deserve to be funded or where they need to be funded, and taking that financial burden off the backs of our current residents. So we're working hard at that in a lot of these throughout this entire budget. Just like the enterprise leasing, we're looking at how can we do that differently. CRA, funding some things that maybe in the past they haven't. These are all areas to take some pressure off of our general fund in case Amendment 3 goes forward.
Thank you. And I really appreciate Barbara and yourself for taking everything seriously. I know there was a mobility plan done a few years ago, and then what happened? Did we derive any benefit from it? I remember Palm Beach Gardens did it, and then we followed suit because of the fees that we needed to collect. But I never heard that there was any benefit from that plan at that time, and I'd like to know how, if maybe there was and I didn't know about it, or how much of that plan is still feasible. I know some of it, you have to look at things, it's a different time. That's why I object to so many studies. They're done, then they're put aside, and then a few years later, they're no good. You got to start over. And but I really feel confident that this will move forward, and I really appreciate the two of you very much, very much. And I think the rest of the town does. If they listen to me, they do. Yeah.
Thanks.
I appreciate it because it's a long time needed. You know, you've got a lot of work to do to catch up with the things that were not done properly. I know that.
Well, I appreciate that. And of course, I can't take all the credit. Nadia is a big part of, that side of it and the team there. The mobility plan that we did have in place, of course, justified the fee that we were able to charge to new development. So we are receiving some of those dollars. But what we're not collecting are the impacts on the county roads, which, as you know, Silver Beach, Dixie, the intersections on, at some of these areas.
Was that not included in that original plan?
No, and that's what we're doing now is
that was costly. I know it was very costly, that plan.
And I don't know if, and maybe Nadia can expand on it, but I know at that time it was still, a little hairy on what we could go after and what we can't. And state law has since changed, so it's been a little bit more defined. So absolutely.
Change is constant.
And we agree. We want to see if we're going to do a study or a plan or a design, we want to make sure going forward that we have the funding planned for the construction, not just to do the design anymore.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, that road diet thing, I mean, that's obsolete. I mean, I could see that that's not the plan that we actually need now. And we need a plan that's much simpler and and more cost effective so that we can get it done. That's been talked about 20 years.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we implemented the CIP as well, so that going forward, as we're planning for these projects, we also have not only a design cost but a construction cost. What our communications and grants folks are now doing, our director's having a meeting with all of our staff on a monthly basis, not only to identify new grants, because we want to be much more aggressive going after grants to fund some of these construction costs and the design costs, but also to be able to plan and make sure that we're not deviating off of where we need to be. We're seeing a lot of costs getting really too high. And, before we get, we shouldn't get to 100% plans and be $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 over budget. We need to, before we get to, around 60% plans, we should be, modifying our project to see if we can fund it or looking for additional revenues at that time. So we're really looking to change some of that. And I appreciate, our team on a monthly basis really looking at the grant side. We're going to be, really strong working again through appropriations. As each of the commissioners got Home Rule Hero this year for advocating for not only legislative positions, but also for, appropriations. It's just unfortunate the governor, cut us out again, 2 years in a row, vetoed our projects that our lobbyists and our commission worked so hard to try and bring back to the town. So, but that's another reason why we're looking at some of the CRA dollars when Barbara gets to it. We're really looking to get some of these projects done. We need to get some of these projects, these infrastructure projects done so that we have a more viable infrastructure throughout our community. And another reason why, with Barbara, what she said in the beginning, one of the 4 main priorities that we had with this budget was doing roads and sidewalks throughout our community. We need to be able to do more of that. I know the Public Works Director, a number of months ago presented a plan over the future. We're going to keep implementing that plan and trying to fund on a yearly basis more roads and more sidewalks so that we don't get into the position that we're in.
That's visible. As I drive through town, I see new roads, and they're lovely. I mean, they're needed.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that I don't know what department exactly it would be in, but I'm talking about the oval about. If we got any money, I would say that is something that needs to happen. That corner, I mean, we invested $1 million in that building, and the poor building is sitting there surrounded by a mess.
I know.
I mean, there's no way to get in and out. It is a mess. I was just by there yesterday, and I'd like to know, can CRA dollars be used for that oval about?
You'll see when Barbara
Okay,
gets to
because
it.
I mean, that would make much more sense than buying something else, another property or something like that. I would think that would be a priority because it's an eyesore. The building is beautiful. Like, we've invested so much money, and then there it is, surrounded by, a mess.
Yeah, that was the discussion during this budget, is we can't keep waiting for the appropriations. We can't. Again, the commissions work so hard, not only talking with our delegation, but also with when we go up to Tallahassee. We're on policy committees, as you know. We're advocating for all this money and all these changes, that to better benefit our community. We're working with the county. The county has committed some dollars to us. We're working with them to do an interlocal, but we are planning to fund that going forward, utilizing CRA and then hopefully some of those mobility dollars as well. We're looking at doing 10th Street, Park Avenue Extension, Silver Beach. These are all infrastructure projects that we are absolutely looking at going forward with and utilizing CRA dollars. So maybe not next year, but some of those projects are over the next couple of years, and that'll be included in our capital, in our CIP. So Nadia,
just to elaborate real quick on why the original mobility plan did not include the county roadways at 100%. At that time, because Palm Beach Gardens was dealing with some legal issues, the town was advised to not move forward in that same manner to avoid a potential challenge. But now that we are revisiting, right, correct, the mobility plan, we will be focusing further into that component. Yeah.
Okay. First, I want to agree with Mary's comments about how much work has been done on this budget. I only attended one budget meeting when I first moved here under the previous administration, and it was nothing like this. This level of detail and the rethinking of classification of expenditures and revenues spread along a greater number of chart of accounts. Is that the right word? These 500 numbers, do you refer to them as chart of accounts?
So we have a chart of accounts with all the individual line items in there. So in the personnel category, there's the salaries, executive salaries, overtime salaries, all those benefits. Each one of those is a part of the chart of accounts.
And what's the 500? How do you refer to the 500 number?
So the 500, it's a department within the general fund.
Yes. And does that number have a reference? Do you call it something? You don't call it chart of accounts. Is there something?
We call the cost center number.
Cost center. Bingo. That's the one I wanted. An astounding amount of work. Astounding. So I again commend you. I want to pick up on impact fees. And this is way over my pay grade. So I'm going to misrepresent or misunderstand something, and that's what this education piece is all about.
absolutely.
Impact fees are not applied. I'm trying to connect what an impact fee is as it relates to development projects. Are impact fees assessed on development projects that are yet to be done?
Yes and no. In our community, and the answer is yes to your question, but in our community, it hasn't been because we don't have those impact fees in place. Since we haven't done those studies previously to justify the impact fee, then we've not been charging them. So all the recent development that's occurred, we have very few impact fees here. So when we get to like a facility impact fee, when we have a new building with 330 residents or units that come in, each one of those units would normally be assessed an impact fee to support the impact that it would have on our public facilities, our library, our parks, because they're going to need park space. The thought is that we should be, and in our comprehensive plan, it talks about how many acres and how much we should have park space. All these different things. We have standards that we've set, we should be able to meet. If we can't fund those out of our general fund, which we won't be able to meet those requirements, especially if Amendment 3 comes in, then the way I look at it, we're putting that burden on our current residents rather than asking the development to pay for the impacts that it's creating on our community. And so the answer is yes, but we just haven't had those impact fees set. So that's why I say yes and no, because no, we've not been charging them because we just don't have them. And you can't justify them without doing the study. So there's an upfront cost to be able to have the back end.
Good, understood,
revenue.
thank you. Is there a study underway?
Yes. But as I mentioned earlier, because of Senate Bill 180, we may not be able to go forward with it. And again, it was random for me to find that article that Palm Coast had gotten sued and actually lost. They're going to appeal. We'll see what happens. And we've provided that information to the attorney because, again, we don't want to get in the same position. I don't want to even bring it to the commission if there's going to be the thought that we're going to waste any money at all on it. But I don't want to not have the money in the budget if we can do it so that we can move forward. Because every time development, someone gets a CO, we've missed that opportunity to support the impacts that they have, they're creating.
That makes sense. Let me expand on that impact fee issue to a broader question. Are there any parts of the budget that assumes or plans in the budget around upcoming development projects? Are there parts of the budget, money that is anticipated but not real yet around development and growth projects that are in the pipeline but not settled yet?
I'm not aware that we've done that in this budget. Now we have paving projects, we have splash pads that are included, those kinds of things, but those are benefiting our current residents and will benefit a future development as well. Specifically for a single project, I'm not aware of anything. I'm looking at Nadia, she's shaking her head as well.
Good.
And I don't think, Jamie, are you aware of anything? No. Now we have the Park Avenue extension down the line. We have the roundabout. Those are all projects that will benefit future development, but they're really meant to have the impact of what we're dealing with today.
And to further elaborate on that, no, the anticipated revenues that are factored into the budget, at least I'm speaking for community development and the permitting funds, they do not anticipate any larger development projects coming in. If they come in or they don't, that's a future, that's a future initiative. However, for example, the permitting fund does have to rely on certain revenues to balance the expenditures. We haven't gotten there yet.
And
but
so
we
you're
will.
projecting those numbers.
I did not assume a large permitting revenue for a larger project to balance the expenditures
Okay.
at this point.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's reassuring.
But again, if those revenues don't occur, the expenditures don't happen too. So we do have to project in, through our budget on some of those things. But actual infrastructure projects, I can't think of anything off the top of my head sitting here.
Okay. Last question. When you add these cost centers to better reflect our budget situation and make it clearer for everyone, the commissioners and the community, to understand what's better, when you've added those cost center issues, it's my understanding that it can, I'm not sure if I'm using the right word, but flatten the organizational structure of the budget accountability, the budget accounts. You're adding more. If you had added less, it would tend to be more vertical. If you add more, it would tend to be more horizontal. Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't know that that's the reason why we're doing it.
No, not the reason.
Oh.
The consequence. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does become a little bit more vertical, just in that you're able to see, we're not combining things more. With community development, a lot of that's having to happen, or the building side, because state law requires it. So it's not necessarily just because we also think that it's a great idea. I do personally think it's a better idea that's what happens, because then we can see the true costs of the building inspection side and building. But state law is requiring us to almost do that, because at the end of the day, we're not allowed to mix those dollars and use those dollars by state law. That's all change. So by keeping it separate, it does flatten it or keep it more vertical, but it's more transparent as well. If we're able to collect impact fees, we want to see that probably in a separate fund. Our CIP, we normally funded it in one fund, and we're now changing that, and we're going to start funding that in the departments as well, so that you can see the true costs of those capital in the future going forward. So again, it's not the thought of is it vertical or horizontal. For us, it's just transparent.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, just a question regarding the grants that go to the capital improvement projects, and you mentioned 10th Street. There is a grant that's available that Mr. Willie did a presentation regarding the improvements to 10th Street going south from Park Avenue to Silver Beach.
Correct.
And he indicated at that presentation that there was a time frame to be able to use that grant, and that the project would need to be started this year and completed, don't quote me, it was either
September of next year.
next year. And I was wondering if that project is taking a priority so we can, utilize that grant money and move forward with that project, because it was a beautiful presentation and it would be a great asset to the community.
And the answer is yes, it is a priority. We're probably at about 60% plans. We had a meeting with the engineer a week or two ago. Actually, it was a couple weeks ago. And we brought in, at that point, I brought in community development and CRA. To that point, they had not been incorporated into the designing of the project, because we don't just want to do an undergrounding project, right, and then paving it again, right? We want to make sure that project is represented as a major corridor coming into our community, that it's an entranceway, that when you come into that area, that you're going to be going into somewhere special, right? So we want to see paver bricks, we want to see stamped concrete, we want to see our street furniture like we have in the downtown area. We're looking at doing, the LED signs in those areas so that, it provides information and announces to people, that, hey, and supporting our businesses. One of the things that I asked our staff to do during that meeting is work with the business owners that are on the west side of 10th. Not just the business owners, but the property owners. We've now started reaching out to those folks so that they can be incorporated into the project. Because if you look, they have these wider driveways and there's not the grass and those kinds of things. And that may be more functional for them as a business, but down the line, is that more functional for what we're trying to do and how we're trying to grow, that corridor? So we're planning and doing some of those things. And your answer is yes, but we're doing so much more than just what that grant requires, because CRA is now going to be involved and support some of those costs.
That was also mentioned at the presentation, that there may be some CRA funds available. I think the number thrown out was about $1 million. And in regards to the businesses on that 10th Street, particularly the one, the daycare facility that just got approval from the commission to do their improvements, there was going to be some changes to their driveways and some of the entrances. So I'm happy to hear that everybody's working together and collaborating as a team, so that those, if they're doing their improvements, that they're coordinating with what we'll be doing, on 10th Street to make sure that those businesses all work together. That's great. I really love hearing that. The presentation was wonderful. Everything that you just stated that you want to incorporate is such a welcome to that part of town. It really needs a beautiful facelift, and thanks for that. And as long as we put that as a priority and we're able to do that in the time frame, let's get it done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just for a heads up also, Leanna, who's our new CRA administrator, she's working with Twigs. They're actually looking for a separate CRA grant as well. So by communicating with these businesses now on 10th, we've now educated them about these CRA grants that they've never even heard about or knew about were available. So hopefully we'll see them looking to do some things. We're also talking to them, and something that Nadia and I have talked about with Leanna is, do we change some of the zoning, the zoning designation in that area so that we can encourage some different uses through there as well if there were some redevelopment. So we're going to continue talking about that, envisioning and planning, and really trying to meet with the redevelopment plan and the master plan that the commission, has set in the past, and really trying to meet those requirements. So.
Okay. Special events. So there have been some changes. We've increased, decreased, and eliminated some of the events in prior years, and trying to make some events better, and then removing some events so we have some additional funding there. Going forward, the special events is going to work with the CRA to bring 10 downtown movie nights downtown to try to increase the presence of people downtown and, again, make people see what's there and want to come back. There are some priorities that the commission will discuss next meeting to make sure that they agree with what we've presented. They may want to put something back or take something else out, and so we will listen to them and move forward to finish this budget.
And just so, the 10 movie nights, that may be different. That may be, 4 or 5, and we do something else, but that funding will be used for that. The reason why you're seeing that in the special events budget rather than the CRA budget is because the CRA law changed to where we cannot use CRA dollars or TIF dollars for events. So that would have to come out of our general fund or out of other dollars, or sponsor, seeing, individual events occur. And so we're looking at all that, but we have to try and figure out a way to bring foot traffic and activate our downtown. We have to have a reason for people to want to come downtown. We have some great new restaurants coming. We want to see our current businesses and those restaurants really succeed. And to do that, we have to expose those, our downtown to new people and to get new eyes down there. So I really appreciate Rianiti and her staff. If you've also, take a look at the operating side in this cost center over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of cuts. There's been a lot of cuts in our events side of things here. And for me, I look at events as being an economic development tool. It's critical for us to have these types of events so that people know who we are. They want to come to our town. If we don't have these things that build relationships and families and bring families together and then bring new people into our community, then how are we growing? And I think what our staff has done, not only proposing cuts or proposing, reductions in different events, particularly like Sunset Celebration, can we do something different while keeping the main essence of the event? I mean, that's super professional to me, and super mindful of how can we do some things different than maybe we have. And so we're going to continue doing that. And Rianiti and her staff, just do such an incredible job. And where we've reduced some of our areas, they've actually taken up some responsibility in some other areas and managing, some of the facilities down at, the pickleball courts, which can get crazy, and doing some of that other stuff. And so they've really, kind of redefined who they are. And by being asked to do some more downtown, hopefully that'll help bring some foot traffic and activate some of the spaces in the area to make it more viable for more businesses and jobs.
In this special events budget, are you still planning for Haitian Flag Day at $10,000?
Yes.
And can you share with us what some of the logic behind that level of expenditure, not the intent of the program, but the level of expenditure survives, and some concern that a faith-based organization is behind each of the flag days? And is there a mix here between government and religion?
Well, I guess the amount that it's been funded for is what it's been given for a couple years now. Being, I guess you can say, the faith-based organization, because it's a nonprofit. I know that the acronym that's what it stands for, but they are the entity here in Lake Park that works with most of our Haitian community. A lot of the members attend Bethlehem Community Baptist Church here. And then most of them are residents in the town that are a part of that organization. They have a board and some other members on it as well. They've just been the organization that has worked with this community to bring that event to the town. I would imagine, if there is another organization out there that would like to do the same, that we could sit down and have those conversations with them. But that is just the organization that's here in Lake Park.
I hear you. That it's been done at $10,000 for the past few years is not a particular motivator, given that we want to be careful about all of our expenditures today. Number two is, if all of their activities or the primary focus is around faith-based initiative, not support services, social services, medical services, even immigration services. If it's around faith-based, there has been some concern about it. I think it belongs primarily to the commission to distinguish what those issues may be relative to not mixing religious and state municipal monies. And there's no need, you can comment on it if you like, but that's the issue. But here's the thing. You mentioned that events should be an economic development tool, and that events should be how do we grow the town through our events. And with all due respect to the Haitian community, and I have a Haitian member in our society board. Two, I'm just uncertain about how much further we should, whether this deserves further consideration about the level of the expense. I love Haitian Flag Day. I have attended them. Roger has been kind enough to introduce me at them when I've attended. But I'm still unsure about the $10,000, that level. And I still have some concern from residents speaking with me about the role of the faith-based organization if they're not providing other community services, even within the Haitian community, outside of a religious perspective. And that's food for thought. Last thing, Richard, last thing. I know this is a budget meeting, and we're deviating a bit off of that into policy, politics, and all of that. It's a necessary function when residents only have 180 seconds at commission meetings with no opportunity for dialogue. And so it's natural that budgets are presented and considered in the context of the social and environment of the town. And so we have an opportunity now to have to talk about some of those contexts because we rarely get an opportunity to do so in any other forum. And since there's a link, obviously, to budgets, we're taking the time to do that a little bit now more than we would preferred, or maybe you've preferred to stick within the strict discussion of the budget. So I hope that explains where I'm coming from.
Yeah, we're here to answer your questions, and we get it. That sometimes, there's going to be the why, and the why is going to be a policy issue. So completely understanding. We just, again, actually this was a suggestion that you had made to do these types of meetings, and other cities are doing it, and I thought it was a great idea. I think we should be doing it. So we're here to answer questions that we can answer, and so completely understand that it may deviate a little bit, but we'll try and get it back on track when we can. But at the same time, some of the questions are fair, and they do tie into the budget, so I don't disagree with you. Okay, but we're done. We gotta get back on track now.
I didn't hear. Maybe it's better I didn't. Okay. I see to eliminate the multicultural fair. Well, I suggested for a couple years that instead of adding that, it was combined with the sunset celebration. Like instead of having two separate things, you would have a theme for the sunset celebration and bring in some different kind of music. Then it seemed like it's always kind of the same beat or something. But, some island music or different types of entertainment for the sunset celebration. Even classical maybe once a year around the holidays or something like that. And that wouldn't cost any money any more than just the sunset celebration. I'm not for having two events in a month. I think that's too many, no matter what month it is. I think that everything should be combined, one event a month at the most.
Well, I'm all in favor of the Jimmy Buffett tribute band. But I think Rainey does try to do a lot of that. I think she does try to look at a lot of different bands and different types of music. I know the one last month, was that going to be country last month? So yes, I think we're trying to do a lot more of more breadth of that. And I think again, Rainey's always looking at new bands. And in fact, when we were at the conference last week, we saw one of the bands at the conference they were playing that have played for us in the past. So and they played a lot of the music I remember. Maybe not you, but I think that's a good comment.
Band or steel drums or things like that. And I think that last year, I know a lot of people commented about the multicultural because they liked the music. I don't know where they come from, these different bands, but I just think it would be more fun to have different entertainment, different types of entertainment. But country, yeah, some people like country. Yeah, okay.
So we're trying.
And old music, there's a lot of old people in town. They seem to like that old stuff, but I prefer the reggae.
Jimmy Buffett, there we go, see? Lou will come.
Okay, we'll move forward. Library. The library is proposing a personnel increase of expenditures of 5.85%. Again, we're doing all those little things, decreasing the telephone stipend, moving software out of the library and into information services. They've reduced some of the promotional activity of their guest speakers and have reduced some of their library materials in their budget to, again, meet that request for that 10% cut that we've been moving forward with.
And real quick, Barbara, just on this one, I want to mention a couple quick things. One, we removed a position from this budget. And then also Judy worked and her staff worked really, really hard this year and looked at the hours. We changed our hours to be more accommodating to, the kids that are going to school. We're seeing a lot more kids involved in the library later in the evenings or in the early evenings. Judy was telling me the other day that they're bringing in some food to help, support some of that, which I appreciate and I wasn't aware of. And, so we're offering some programming. And again, a lot of these kids, what a lot of people don't realize, their parents are working 2 and 3 jobs probably. They don't really have a lot of places to go. And so they're playing soccer and, and hanging out between the library and town hall. And, the library now is giving, a safe place for some of these kids to learn and have fun. One of the things that I mentioned to the staff the other day when Judy was talking about this is, I'd like to see us have a volunteer, program with those kids to where I'm going to allow our staff, if they want, to go over to the library for an hour a week, right? I said an hour a week, to go over, if they want to go over and help to tutor. I think that's really, really important for us that we invest back in our children. And if we can do that in learning and letting them see who we are as an organization and who we are as a town, I think that's really, really important. And Judy, I appreciate the hard work that you put into trying to change those hours, because she does have some regulars that like to come earlier in the morning. And so that had to shift, and we had to shift our staff hours. But we're seeing some success, and we're seeing more people maybe attending our library because we're open a little bit later and when it's a little bit more convenient. So sorry, I didn't mean to jump in on that. But.
I can appreciate this is the expenditure side. We've been through the revenue side for a library earlier today, correct?
Because it's supported by the general fund, so yes.
Yes, okay. And that's where I didn't have an opportunity to comment about the library. The proposal, it's not a proposal as I understand it. The library initiative for charging for the meeting room and charging people for bringing food in. That revenue stream was heard the other night, last Wednesday, and because of a misunderstanding, the community did not get an opportunity to discuss and provide feedback to that particular issue of library room and food fees before the commission voted on it. And then after the commission voted, the public had an opportunity to comment about it. It's a very disturbing line item, primarily since the testimony that was provided by Sue LaFontaine, she did some research about other libraries and how much they charge or don't. And ours was on the higher side, as I recall, the testimony. In addition to which, there's no other space in this town for residents at all, and I'll highlight nonprofits, to meet as residents in tax-paying facilities that we buy, that we pay for. And so this one really struck the bone. And I'd like to comment, I'd like to register our concern about that, and to have the commission, since we have at least one commissioner here, to revisit that particular line item and strike it from budget consideration. Thank you.
Judy Cooper, Library Director. We put that in primarily because we had changed, we're doing a policy change where we're now going to allow for-profit businesses to use like the Schuyler Room to like do, if they want to do like trainings. And we have it built into the policy that not-for-profits can have a reduced or eliminated fee. Also, we are now going to be offering the Schuyler Room use outside of library hours, and that was also a consideration. We looked at other libraries in the area. We didn't look at the county libraries, which is what Sue Fontaine had primarily cited. We were looking at municipal libraries in the area like West Palm Beach and North Palm Beach, who do charge. But we were going to, the policy is flexible enough that not-for-profits will not have to pay if necessary, if that makes sense.
HOAs or condo associations as well?
They're not-for-profits.
Okay, so is the policy that nonprofits don't pay or have a reduced pay?
It's depending on the not-for-profit, but for the most part, chances are we're going to say they don't pay.
And what is the policy that depends on the nature of the nonprofit? Where is the distinction made? I'm asking you no, because there's been plenty of discussion on the dais about special event discounts, requests for waivers of all sorts of organizations. Mm-hmm. And that culture for deciding when to charge and how much to charge, depending on the vendor application, has been the subject of debate for a little while now, and it's sharpening. Indeed, now that the library is part of this discussion, and we didn't have an opportunity before the vote the other night, I think it's still germane to ask for clarity so that nonprofits can plan ahead. In addition to which, if you're residents and you're not part of a nonprofit, if you want to bring 6 of your residents over to the library to have a discussion on what's going on their street, and they're not a nonprofit, do residents either have a discount or a waiver of the fee for either the meeting room or bringing in some food?
Okay, you're talking about specific situations. With the nonprofits, it's probably going to be more along the lines of past behaviors. So if you, in the policy, we do charge an extra fee for cleaning now, and that's going to be where the nonprofits are probably going to end up paying, the ones who tend to leave the rooms messy. So if you clean up after yourself, we're not going to be having a problem with you. Also, if you are doing things after hours, because we are going to have staff come in after hours.
Understandable.
If you're having a small group like that, technically, according to the policy, it's nonprofits and for-profits that we're doing this for. So we would probably end up making additional accommodations, and we would probably not be charging anything anyway, and we'd probably try and sit you up in the large study room, but during library hours. If you were doing it outside of library hours, then we probably would charge. Does that make sense?
Verbally it does.
Yeah.
I'm interested in seeing what the policy says so that it's less subjective.
I actually have the policy with me if you want to read it.
Well,
I printed it out. figuring it's some-
oh, great. Not necessarily this moment, but I'd like to come in and chat with you about it.
Sure.
I have always enjoyed working with you guys. It's been very accommodating to residents and nonprofits. It was very scary to hear about this the other night, and it went under the radar because we never had a chance to chat about it and try to influence what the commission might do about it.
I will say that this conversation, if Amendment 3 goes forward, will be a much, it'll be the conversation about everything, basically, because this is what it will be. You know, do you want to use the playground? You know, we've made the, you know, the joke that there'll be like a turnstile, like a, you know, like when you're at the subway, you know? I mean, and that's sad that we would have to, you know, charge, you know, a child to do that, or to park, or to do anything. But you know, the intent is, you know, to cover the costs and not put the burden on our current residents. That's the main, you know, again, it's how do we look at our budget so that our residents aren't paying for someone else to do something all the time. And if we have to stay late at night and Judy will stay, you know, is that fair for the residents to not have her use another day because she's either flexing her time or we have to pay more for staff overtime. So those are the things that we're looking at when we're making these. Are they all going to work? Are they all, you know, is everyone going to agree with it? And are we going to maybe have to, you know, come back and look at things a little differently? No, but, you know, we're going to keep trying to just try and do the right thing. And I appreciate this conversation because I think it's healthy. And if our policy doesn't completely say it as clearly as maybe the public needs it to say, then that's good. It gives us a chance to amend it. This won't go into effect, I think, until October.
No.
So we have a month and a half to look at this. If you have comments, please let us know. Let us know if it's not very clear.
Yeah. Yeah, and primarily, a large part of this was because we were opening it up to for-profit, so that, because we had been having requests, and we've been having requests to have stuff or programs outside of, or people have things outside of library hours. And this gives us the flexibility now to do that and to also recoup that loss so that, you know, with staff time and so forth.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you for giving that detailed explanation, just because it kind of worried me a bit. Again, this was something we've never done before, so my thought process was, where did this materialize from? Like, who gave the idea to do this? Because it's kind of the Skylar Room is kind of a safe haven place for, you know, homegrown nonprofits, people of interest that want to present a business model to our community. And it just seemed kind of out of left field that this idea came into play. And I respect his concerns about the fact that we are charging and what distinguishes that versus one way or the other. Can you tell me out of curiosity how this idea came about?
Part of it is because we were looking at revenue streams for the library with Amendment 3 on the horizon, whether or not it gets passed or not. And also we were trying to figure out what we could do to accommodate people who wanted to use the Skylar Room after hours, who might want to use it on a Sunday, and so forth. So it came up, the revenue idea came up, and then it was like, well, you know, we can offer this if we are recouping our losses.
You said we. When you say we, who are you referring to?
I was talking to.
It was me. It was me. I'll take the burden off of her. I mean, you know, we have to, you know, if we're gonna, if you know, first of all, we're not broke, but we are struggling with our dollars, And so we have to look at how do we not put the burden on our residents? And we have to look at how do we shift some of those dollars? And the library really doesn't have any revenue stream coming in, so it's a constant burden on our general fund. You know, my office doesn't bring in any money. Barbara's doesn't bring in any money. You know, where is the dollars coming from to pay for these services and these options? And if there are businesses or nonprofits that are coming from outside of our area, the intent is, why should our current residents be paying for those services and facilities to be maintained, provided, the lights, the electric, the overhead? At some point, we have to say the taxpayer dollars have to be protected. And the intent isn't to harm the community, it was to protect the community. If there's a perception that it doesn't, we'll fix it. But the intent is, and it was a direct conversation that I had asked Judy to look at. I asked her to look at all of the different, you know, local library costs, and again, if we don't now, next year's going to be a bigger burden. That's why we did the 10% cut. That's why we did the 10% cut last year that I know Commissioner Linden and the rest of the commission asked us to do. We enhanced that this year that the commission, you know, I think supported that we do it. And hopefully next year, if Amendment 3 goes through, we're in a much better place that the community won't feel this drastic hit. And we already have some of our policies in place to protect, you know, our commission from having to make decisions that are just so harmful to the livability of our community. So
There's absolute mid-ground to be achieved here. I know we can. The for-profit issue, the after-hours issue, the cleanup issue, completely understood. Even if you maximize the amount of dollars that you might forecast in that regard, this is not the budget saver. This is not the budget breaker. A budget saver, budget breaker might be that 1 year we take a year off on merit raises of 3% for everybody. 1 year. That's significant to the budget. And it's not easy for me to say that with the enjoyment I have of working with the staff and the respect I think we get and how far we've come. But if we're going to make money or save money, given whatever financial situation we're in right now, the big ticket items are where those things happen. And so the observation of making $75 for the library is not the game changer for Lake Park.
But I would add that as you add up all the little things, it does, and that's why, it was universal in all of our fees. Let's look at them all. We had, Nadia had to look at them because of state law. But at the end of the day, we have to look at those. We should be looking at those. Jason looked at his. Fees are going to be increasing because we have to stay in the black. We have to be able. We're one of the lowest costing, marinas in the area, I believe. It's what, $5? Is it $5 to use the ramp? $10 to use the ramp? You get parking all day, and it's a deal, And because we took fine grants, we can't offer our residents something different. So we have to offer that same rate. If we're going to keep the rate low for our residents, then we're keeping it low for anyone that lives in the 67 counties of Florida based on the fine grants. So, some of the things that we're constrained to because of the choices maybe we've made, in the past, and we have to look at things a little differently. And frankly, all we're doing is trying to be prepared in case the inevitable happens with Amendment 3, and I'm afraid that if Amendment 3 does go through, we're gonna be having this kind of conversation, and people will be saying, the people maybe that voted against Amendment 3 are saying, well, we want these services, but we're going to be bound by what the constitutional amendment requires, and we're going to be, in a struggling place, that maybe we didn't want to be. So we completely understand the conversation, but this isn't probably going to be the first time we have this conversation if that goes through. But again, please, if you don't feel that it's clear or you have a recommendation, again, we want to be transparent. We want feedback. And I think the goal for Judy was, let's cover our costs the best that we can.
Good morning. I have a two-part question, actually. How many people actually from outside of Lake Park actually use the library?
I'm not sure.
Compared to the people that's in the town. I guess what I'm saying is just the same as the marina, is that maybe we can create some kind of fee for if you live in Lake Park or you're a nonprofit registered in Lake Park, it's a little less discounted than it is for people outside of Lake Park. I visit the marina quite often, and I see that, and I hear it all the time from the marina to the pickleball courts, that if you don't live in Lake Park, we don't even charge for the pickleball courts. But if you don't live in Lake Park, you get the same rates as Lake Park. So the benefit, until we stop paying taxes in Lake Park, we're already paying taxes in Lake Park. What is the benefit of living in Lake Park if we don't get a little discount? That's all I got to say about that.
I think that's something that we certainly should be looking at in everything that we do, is that, there's a resident rate and an out of a non-resident rate. And maybe that's just the easy way that we make it very clear in our policy that this is what it is. This is, a nonprofit rate for outside. We can look at that way. Unfortunately, with the marina, we can't do that because we have so many state grants or fine grants that prohibit us from saying we can offer a resident rate to a non-resident rate. And until those grants are expired, and that's a 25-year, when we accepted those grants, it was a 25-year requirement that we offer the same cost to anyone who utilizes that facility. We know that, I believe in the middle of the decade of 2030, they'll expire. So that was, another reason when we were talking about the P3 issues, a concern with, how do we do that? How do we make sure that the marina is available to our current public or to our current residents? But I think that's a good idea.
Right now, we do not charge any difference between non-residents or residents. I know, if I remember correctly, the only municipal library in the area that charges for non-residents is Riviera Beach, and they charge like $15 to get a card. But I'm not sure how they're doing that, because it also says in the state grant, in order to get the state aid grant, we have to be free to all. So I can look into seeing that if we can charge non-residents different.
I think, Judy, it's more just like the use of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if, so we can talk about it. We'll look at it. Yeah.
Last department in the general fund is general government. There are no personnel in this. This is a place to put things that don't belong to a specific department. Principal payments on loans, capital outlay that isn't specifically tagged to one particular area. We'll have insurance. That's one of the bigger things that's in there. So the budget is larger than in past years. I know we have increased the amount of money that we've put in there for the community beautification grant. Nadia and her team are actively working to try to get more involvement for people using those dollars. This budget could change because, again, we're hanging on our insurance numbers. We've allocated an 11% increase. If it comes in higher than that, we'll have to do some work to continue to bring this one in line. In this budget, you see a reduction in debt because we have paid off the general fund and CRA portion of the Bank of America loans that have existed since 2008 and 2009. There's a small piece of that left, and that's budgeted in the marina because that is their piece. And other debt is budgeted in the marina because that's where it belongs to. Sanitation has its own debt for its trucks, so you won't see anything there. Are there any specific questions about general government? One of the things we've done is all those 10% cuts, we've stored them in there in case. We think we don't need it, but if we do, if we take a frozen position, if we turn around and decide we really need it, commission agrees, we have it budgeted. It's our intent not to spend it. And so we'll see how that goes. I'm already picking at it for the insurance money. If I can't find anything else. Right now, we have used our best guess on a lot of our state revenues because they have no projections available yet. They didn't pass their budget in time. I check every couple of days. So far, nothing. So we may be too high, we may be too low, and we need that information to be able to finish.
This might be the right place to ask Barb. I don't recall, in an earlier slide, you had taken some positions and changed the classification to them. Is that right? Am I using the right word?
Correct.
Okay. But it had no impact on the budget.
One of them had no impact on the budget.
Oh, I thought there were several that
So
didn't have.
there were three. Two had an impact on the budget, one did not. So
Okay.
the first one was the marketing specialist in communications and grants.
Okay.
That one will have no effect on the budget because the salary is well within the range of the higher
Okay.
classification.
And so I thought there were more than just one. However, what is the point of changing that classification if it has no impact on the budget?
It'll fit his duties better, and it will allow him for future growth. Because again, we have a starting point and an ending point, and when you get to that ending point,
When you're up for your next opportunity, you're that much closer.
right, and so this will allow him to continue to grow in this case.
Okay, so it doesn't have a budget impact, but it's a morale booster, shall we say.
And it could have a budget impact 10 years down the road.
Down the road, certainly. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So the next one up is stormwater. So our stormwater expenditures, again, we're trying to make the budget better. One of the things we did this year is we looked at some of the grants. We have a fund called Special Projects, 301. It's coming up in a little bit. And we were running all grants through there. And at the end of each year, if a grant didn't belong to the general fund, we had to physically move all that money. It helped for tracking purposes, but it created a headache on the other end for reconciliation purposes. So this year we're going to try budgeting the stormwater grants in stormwater where they belong. That is why you see a larger increase in number, because we are going to follow through with that. And so we're talking about the 10th Street South piece. There's about $4 million budgeted for that. It's there. The other thing we did in stormwater is we were budgeting money on a repair and maintenance line for line improvements. And improvements are not an operating expenditure, they're a capital expenditure. So we pulled that money out of the operating budget and moved it to a capital budget. So again, you'll see that's a big increase there in one section, but it's a corresponding decrease in the other. There's no change in what we're going to do. It just becomes a change in where we post it. Even with the enterprise funds, such as the stormwater and sanitation, they have their own revenues they need to live within them. But we went through the 10% exercise with them as well. We dropped that excess money into a reserve account in case, if we need $1.2 million for lines instead of $1 million, we have that extra money there. If we don't need it, it will go toward their reserve and shoring up their ability to be financially stable going forward. Oh, sorry. Sanitation fund. In the sanitation fund, our revenues have increased slightly. And again, those are coming from the rate study plan that's been in effect for, this is the final year. We have decreased repairs and maintenance because we have 2 new vehicles and expecting a third. A third has been approved. Additionally, we're starting to save going forward for new vehicles as opposed to automatically financing them. So if we can start putting the money away for over 3 years and at the end of that year purchase the vehicle, we'll save interest costs, which on one of the current trucks is about $34,000 each year for the 4 years we're paying for it. So it is a substantial savings. Oh, sorry, $34,000 over the 4 years, not each year. Sorry, that didn't come out right. Are there any questions for sanitation? Streets and roads. Streets and roads is an internal service fund, and if it has more expenditures than it has revenues, it's funded by the general fund. We segregate it, again, because the revenues require they be spent in a specific fashion. This helps us to do so. So you'll see we have state revenues. We have a maintenance contract with Florida Department of Transportation to maintain lights in their area. And the biggest revenue is the transfer from the general fund of $647,000. That is your paving and your sidewalks. The town manager had referenced that Jamie had done a plan of what would be needed for each going forward for the next 10 years. And so we have budgeted almost all of it. We were short a little bit, but we have money for sidewalks, we have money for roads right here. And additionally, in the special projects fund, we have about $375,000 of roadway in there as well, and that's using up the balance of the discretionary surtax, or that extra half-cent sales tax that we have been paying for several years when we were at 7%. Our share of that had to go to capital projects, and so roadways is getting the last of those dollars. Specific questions about streets and roads? I'm going to toss your street in there for priority repaving. We can get Jamie to put it on the list.
Barbara, real quick.
Yes.
Going back to that, the expenditures for, can you go to the slide going forward?
Oh, go forward.
That. So we are looking at doing a significant amount in paving and sidewalks out of this fund, but then also out of CRA as well. So I think total we'll see about $1.3, $1.6 million put into our roads and sidewalks this year between the two areas. So we're going to see a lot of work in addition to what you've seen in the past or recently. So we're going to continue that program of improving the look and the appearance and the aesthetics, you know, and the functionality of our roads. So.
So permitting. We talked earlier, this is our new fund for tracking permit revenues and expenditures. So when we originally proposed this budget, we were looking to hire our own building official as opposed to contracting out the service because it would be a cost savings. We dedicated specific staff to this department or fund, and we looked at some backup contract services in case the building official was unavailable or too busy, that we would provide the service needed. Since that point in time, Nadia has been reaching out to a neighboring community about doing some cost sharing. Let us use your building official and we'll pay a fee of however it works out, hourly set. And looking at that, we're coming up with some more cost savings there. So we'll move forward with the negotiations to see if we can come to an agreement. And then this budget will need to be revised because we'll eliminate that building official position because we'll be sharing a building official, which will substantially save some dollars. Okay. Okay. The best we can, the fastest we can, with the best customer service and mindful of cost. Hiring a building official is a task, and maintaining one, because it's a very small marketplace, there's not a lot of people to choose from, and we're never going to beat some of the private organizations often because of their salary structure.
Yeah, my concern when this was discussed at a previous commission meeting was eliminating the process that we have where there was multiple officials doing these, tasks, and putting it back onto the burden of one person. And you just addressed my concerns. If he's unavailable or she's unavailable, how would those tasks be completed? There's vacation concerns, health concerns. So as long as there's a plan to back up with a share process, so we're not just counting on one person or some other staff members under that particular official to complete the task, that we were able to stay in budget, not have to hire outside services if said person is on a vacation or has a health issue and they're not available, that we have the resources to cover the same budget expense in all of those tasks are still being able to be completed by said individual or staff under those, that official.
We'll probably always have to have a contract.
Yeah.
We'll probably always have to have contracted services. So that will always be, our fallback. But again, the reason why we are separating this out is because right now there's two reasons. One, state law requires us to only use those building permit fees to cover the building inspection costs or those kinds of things. And right now we're paying a vendor 70% of all permit costs to the vendor. So it's the benefit to our community is if we can save those dollars, yeah, we can't use that in the general fund to pay for finance or, or my costs. Well, a portion of it you can, but we can't really use a lot of it for Parks and Rec and those kinds of things. But if there are savings, we can reinvest it back into our community through educational programs, how to do business plans, things like that we've not ever been able to do before because we're spending so much on a contract.
Okay.
And so if we can do that and save those dollars and work with another community or bring someone in, we're still going to probably always have a contract for exactly the reasons why you said, because you never know. God bless you.
Bless you.
And frankly, to be a building official right now is like a unicorn. You know, you don't see them very often, and they're very hard. And these private businesses, these private vendors are paying a fortune to bring them in. And so they're not as available to the local government or municipalities any longer. So for us to be able to work with another community, it'll be wonderful, because we'll be able to compete a little bit better. But we'll always have to have probably at least one, if not two, contracts to back us up.
Okay, but those combined services, the paid building official and the contracted services that may or may not be required, are equal or less than what we're currently paying?
Less.
Less, okay?
Yeah,
That's
that'll be the
perfect, yeah.
intent, not to increase.
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's perfect. That was my main question about that particular item. Thank you so much.
And if we were to hire a building official today, you know, we would automatically probably save money. So the more that we can work with another community, we're gonna, and it's, you know, it works numbers wise, it's gonna be beneficial for us. And again, if there are savings, it's helping us to pay for our software, which is going through the roof, our licenses, all of those things. We're not accepting paper copies anymore. Everything is electronic. Last year, we implemented a technology fee so that these developers or businesses or whoever it is that are coming in, the engineering firms, they're helping to pay for that software, but it's not enough. You know, our software costs are through the roof, and we're only getting more and more reliant on electronic, you know, and technology.
Right.
So we're always looking to save these dollars, because what we don't want to do is have the general fund pay for those costs.
Great.
Development should pay for development costs.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Unicorn? Is that an AICPA standard?
Actually,
Unicorn?
it's probably some building officials
Yeah, okay.
standard.
I will look it up. My bad for not understanding. Two things. Who administers the stormwater fund and the staff?
Public Works.
Public Works.
And have we already discussed some cost center, a place for me to ask about the cost of the town vision project?
The what project?
The what project?
The vision project,
Oh, the strategic planning?
strategic plan.
I think that's,
Is that still to come up? Or
That it's budgeted in general government.
it's still there?
yeah,
It
And
is still
is it 20 or 50?
50.
Okay, thank you.
And I will tell you, we're working with both FSU, Go Knowles, and FAU, Go Owls. But what I found out was by working with FSU, and FSU is going to actually be working on a project about hiring and recruiting for us. They're going to do an analysis of how we can do things differently. That's going to be what they call a capstone project for their graduate staff. FAU does the same kind of thing. We've met with them as well. And one of the things that I've asked Meryl to do, I've actually met with Debbie, our former HR manager. We're going to be looking at them possibly to be doing our strategic planning process here at FAU rather than at FSU, because they're just local and can do the charrettes and do the different things. And that may save us dollars down the road and not have to spend the full amount. It may require the full amount, but I don't know. But at least we'll have a pretty comprehensive, you know, plan that we're looking to do.
And they will only submit one plan, not 5?
Well, it should only be one. It should be one. What, I don't know if that was a joke or not.
Well, you know, I was referring to something. So I hope it's one management plan on.
It'll be one strategic plan with probably 4 or 5 or 6 key priorities
Okay,
that
great.
we focus on, and then
Great.
there'll be goals and objectives underneath.
Yeah. Sometimes we've paid consultants and have submitted many drafts of a management
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
piece.
Marina. So the marina's presenting a budget with a little bit higher revenues than last year. They have gone ahead and raised some of their costs. They have one frozen position, so that cost is still in the marina budget, but again, it's in that reserve account in case. If revenues are higher than projected, they will need that additional staff person, so it is available should the circumstances allow.
What I'd like to, if I could jump into, what I'd like for you to look at is the revenues in 2023 compared to the expenditures. Then look at the expenditures in 2024, or the revenues versus the expenditures. 2025, the same. 2025 is where Jason really placed the focus on how do we manage how do we live within our revenues. We now in 2026 are going to be in the black again. Project in 2025, those are actual numbers. We're in the black. So the constant conversation that's been, oh, well, the marina can't make money. The marina is not able to make money. No, Jason's doing that now. Jason's doing that now. Well, let's wait until our audits come out, but that's what's happening. It takes managing our numbers, knowing our numbers, and we had to do some things that were difficult. There were 2 positions that were not funded in 2025, right? And current year. And so next year we're proposing to bring 1 back. But we have to, in our enterprise funds, which are set up like a business, we have to live within our revenues. Otherwise, we're a failing business, and the business is going to go out of business. What's the point of having the business if we can't do it? So Jason's really done a great job with that. And, in 2027, it has to balance, right? You have to have a balanced budget. So, but it doesn't mean that $3.2 million in revenues is $3.2 million in expenditures. He has about, I think, $277,000 that are in reserves that are set aside. So there's now going to be some savings. The expectation is with those savings, he's going to develop some fund balance for himself for a rainy day, but also start paying back the general fund for the loan that the marina, that the general fund gave to the marina a number of years ago. So again, it's really, really putting the attention into knowing what we're doing. It's not just saying, hey, we have the budget was approved and, we have those dollars to spend. It's an everyday managing of our taxpayer dollars. And that's what the expectation has been over the last 1.5 to 2 years. And I think our staff has really stepped up to the challenge on that. And you see that in the budget. We're not just, increasing our budget by 5%. There was real justification for everything, even to the dollar at times. So, Jason, thank you for your hard work on that.
And a lot of times we're Jason, me, town manager, we're asking the question, what is this for? What does this really do? Do we need it? And we've been able to pick at some of the expenditures that way. Jason has proposed some dollars for piling replacement, resurface the boat ramp, dock boxes that we would purchase and then rent to the boat owners, and some Wi-Fi upgrades to make the Wi-Fi more consistent and better available to the boaters there. Those items were in his capital improvement plan, and they are in this budget.
And some of the things that I've asked Jason also to look at are, how can we get more of our residents back down to the marina? With Sunset Celebration maybe not being there, what can we do? Can we do some fishing contests or fishing tournament things, Can we do food truck invasion down there where our community just doesn't cost us really anything? In fact, we can take some of the revenues. But, can we do paddleboard, bring someone in to do paddleboarding, free paddleboarding? those are the kinds of things that we're challenging ourselves to do that maybe we've not done before or we haven't done in the past or recently in the past. And so we're going to continue doing that and trying to make our facilities more available to our community.
Any marina-related questions?
Jason, can I ask a question?
This is more just a use comment. I went by there last night, my husband and I, after dinner. It's probably about 7:30, and it was very active. And I know that recently we did an ordinance change to allow dogs in the park, and always had dogs at the marina. But there were so many people walking their dogs and just enjoying the area. It was a beautiful night. So I agree with town manager if we can have maybe some organized activities down there. But I was really pleasantly surprised and to see how active it is down there. And I think it does have some reflection on, the Nautilus 220, even though there's a lot of pushback about how that happened and why it's there. But the restaurant facility was very active and busy. So I think it is a positive, move towards, some opportunities to enhance that marina and bring a lot more of the residents there. I was there. A lot of the residents, I believe, were walking probably from some of the other surrounding communities, the other condos, or even from the Nautilus 220. So I know there's a lot of pushback that it's there. It's there. Let's appreciate and let's try to utilize and, take some of the, those residents and get them more engaged into the community. So that was just a positive observation.
Anything else? We talked about most of these, and I guess one of the other things is the fuel costs. We have no control over what fuel costs. But Jason has set up a plan where the margin between what it costs and what we sell it for is static. So even if fuel drops to $2 a gallon, our profit margin is preserved. The revenues will be smaller, but the expenditures will be the same volume smaller, so that it can't cause a problem in this budget. 301, special project fees. Again, we've moved any of the stormwater grants out of there, so we've just got a couple of little things in there. I need to put the splash pad in at the appropriate dollars. I have the new grant in there, but when I did this budget, I anticipated that the splash pad would be under contract before year end, so I didn't need to include it again because it would automatically re-encumber there. So when you look at that, I should have larger revenues in there. Oops, sorry. Yeah, okay. There's a couple little teeny grants. We have a lighting grant over on Silver Beach that we received dollars for, and we track that through there. That will expire probably 2 years from now. But these are all dollars coming in with matching expenditure dollars. There may be a year shift. If dollars are spent in September, we might not receive the money until November. But these are all, there's no profit margin here. There's no loss anticipated here.
And Barbara, we're now funding those dollars for the most part now inside the cost centers or the funds where they actually we're just being transparent. Putting them in this fund, and it really goes to Public Works, or it goes to the marina, or wherever it is. That just doesn't build trust with our community if you can't find where those dollars really are. So it's one of those things that drove me nuts, just like, if we had salary increases and we had them, in a whole nother fund, and they should be in the department or the division where those salary increases are expected to be, so that you all as a community, our commission, when you're looking at the budget, actually what those dollars are. And so this is another area where we said transparency builds trust, and and we want that to continue to be. So now those grants for those projects are now funded in the cost center or the department or the fund where they are going to be managed out of. So it's just really a better way to budget. And you guys deserve to know where that information, where those dollars should be, or where they're going to be funded out of.
And so I understood that, but went, I'm not moving the discretionary dollars. It's too hard because, and there's no reason to. It's just about done. And that little teeny Silver Beach lighting grant, again, it's too little. It's just more easily tracked there for the amount of money it is. But going forward, yes, new grants will be where they belong. Jen?
And when you look at it, go back to that slide one more time, though, real quick. I mean, you look in 2025, that's $8 million. You know, $8 million should be shown in the department that it's actually being received. You know, instead it's here and you don't really know what it's for. You don't, when it goes to the department, again, now you see the distribution of that $8 million. And, you know, if $4 million like we're showing is in stormwater, now you have a better sense of understanding of what's happening. And it gives you a better appreciation that there's that much stormwater work that needs to be done. And instead of it kind of being hidden. So.
Public Improvement Fund, that is, oops, I lost my pages. While
Barbara's looking, basically this money came from the Nautilus project. This is funding that's provided for in our land development code, that if a project exceeds a height requirement that's in our code, then they have to essentially pay the town a certain amount of money based on what they do. So when Nautilus came in, it was about $1 million or so that they paid the town. Those dollars had to stay within that federal highway district. So most of those dollars have been spent in the Kelsey Park area for different park projects or different things like that. Unfortunately, it's just in one area. We'd like to see that to where it's expanded. You know, if something happens like that, let's use it for a park anywhere in the downtown, because the people, if a development happens, you know, down on the water side, all of the parks are going to be impacted. So let's use it for all of the parks. But at the end of the day, that's where it is. And so when we talk about the splash pad, when we talk about Evergreen House, when we talk about these projects, those are the projects that are being funded. That's where they're being funded out of public improvement and then also grant dollars that we've received. So when you hear the commission say they don't want to use any town dollars, they're talking about general fund dollars. Of course, these are town dollars that we receive, but we're not using any general fund dollars to support those projects. And again, you know, before we get to 100% plans, if we know that we're going to be $200,000-$300,000 over budget, we need to be coming back to the commission and saying, do we want to scale down these projects now, or do you want us to do it as a phased project and then get, you know, obtain additional grant dollars? But these dollars are running out. So when they run out, then what do? That's where impact fees will then kind of jump back in. But if we can't do that, then we're kind of stuck. So just wanted to make sure everyone understood these are dollars that came into us so that Nautilus could be a little bit higher than what they were proposed, what they would have been under the LDRs.
Are they indeed paying their bill?
They paid it. They paid the full amount, and we've been spending it over the past 3, 4, 5 years.
Okay. And I'm asking because I was concerned about the lack of payment regarding the barge leases, and that has not been flowing as it should have. So there's some precedent in my simple brain to wonder whether any developer is paying the bill that they should. Number two is the expense for PVSO as a result of the Nautilus building requiring additional security. How is that being siphoned through the town's situation.
If you see that in fact, that was my first meeting that I came to. I hadn't applied, and I was sitting in the back, and I watched that workshop. I was here for that workshop. In the 2025 budget, last year's budget, we enhanced, I think we brought in 2 officers and a community service aide. That increased about $600,000 or $800,000 to the town budget to do that. We absorbed that, or we paid for those dollars using ARPA funding, American Rescue Plan dollars, which came to us from COVID. When COVID was there, we were able to use it for those types of expenses. So the thought was, well, let's plug those dollars in, pay for that Nautilus, because when you're CO'd, if you remember the conversation, when you're CO'd before December 31st, you still don't receive anything until the November or December of that year, so you have that gap. Unfortunately, we funded for the increase in the policing, but they did not get their CO until December 31st, 2025.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why we were short in this last year's budget. Not that we were broke, we were just tight because we used a one-time funding of ARPA funding for the 2025 budget. And then when we got into this year's budget, 2026 budget, we didn't have the ad valorem or the property taxes to support that increase in the policing services. So that's why this year we're in a little bit better position. But of course, now we have the Amendment 3 that we're sweating over. And how do we deal with those kinds of costs? And we're looking at different things to kind of deal with that. But we're funding it today in this year's budget using general fund dollars.
Okay, so aside from Amendment 3 for just a moment, would the anticipation have been that Nautilus would continue to pick up the PBSO bill moving forward?
They would pay for it, not as like Nautilus as a building, but Nautilus individual property owners would pay their fair share in property taxes,
right.
which
Okay.
is what they're doing now.
Okay, that's what I figured. Oh, yes. So it's not going to come from the owners of Nautilus, but that revenue stream still will be coming in, and we don't have to use either the ARPA money or
No.
general fund
The ARPA money is gone.
already.
It's gone.
So we won't need general fund money for that added on.
In the future, it will use
Going into
general.
the future.
The ad
Aside
valorem
from-
will go into general fund, so you'll call it general fund dollars.
Okay, right. Okay.
But the expectation is with Amendment 3
Yeah.
that we're going to lose between 1.3, 1.4 to $2 million. So everything that we bring in with the Nautilus essentially is going to not be there. Fortunately, we have the Avalon Bay that's coming in.
Right.
But it's going to be a difficult
Are
situation.
you aware if most of the Nautilus owners, condo owners, are home exempted or not?
We haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen those numbers. We still, at this point, are still waiting to know how many units have actually been sold. We've been told it's between 50 and 80%. So I don't really know that number yet. I think it's all still being worked through. And but at the end of the day, even if it's not sold, then the developer is paying, because the developer owns those units, property taxes are still being paid on it. So it doesn't matter if it's sold to us or not.
Right.
It's also, as long as it's CO'd, we then get the value, the taxable valuation
Fair enough.
on it.
And wouldn't Roger's day job be able to tell us this answer?
They have, at this point, what they've been dealing with, and we've been kind of patient with them, and they've been patient with a lot. Everyone's been inundating them with questions on Amendment 3, and plus this is like their busy season of getting, the valuations done, getting all the bills out. We all just got our bills either in the mail or they're coming in the mail.
Yeah.
So they have all these statutory deadlines that they're going through that we're working with them on to obtain that stuff, that information.
Understood. And I'm just understanding what the process is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
just going to say, to add to that, you're more than welcome to contact the property appraiser, and they'll be able to answer any questions you may have on that in relation to that. My property appraiser has made that point that if you have questions, please contact them. They'll be able to answer any questions. Well, they're a government entity, so of course they are indeed public. Yes.
And just one last follow-up question on Fund 160. The amount of money that's there, we're looking for grants that we can leverage those dollars at. So since we have that $200,000 there, if we can get a grant and use that $200 for matching funds, we can do something bigger. So Fund 150, Insurance Fund. All insurance dollars are paid out of this fund. So the workers' comp, the liability, the cyber, the bonding, the auto, all of it is all paid out of this fund. And each fund contributes their proportionate share to cover the costs. One of the things we budgeted for in a larger way this year was insurance claims. You don't know how many dollars it's going to be, and you don't know how often it's going to be. But we did find that the budget of $25,000 that we had been using for a bit was never enough. So it's easier to budget larger and secure those dollars in the different funds, and then move back some expenditure to them if it's not spent. So we did, there's an 11% increase in premiums built in there, along with a larger claim. Oh, sorry. There you go. So you can see there everybody's contributing. And the personnel cost is strictly the workers' comp bill. The rest of it is in the operating, including the claims. There's never any questions about insurance. It's too boring.
This is an area where we've historically underfunded, our costs. Rather than going to trial, a lot of times things get settled when there's an accident or someone trips and falls, and we get all these kinds of things, and so we've underfunded that in the past. So we're really trying to be better at managing that, and we're also. And Vivian has taken over that responsibility. That used to be in the HR side of things. I've asked Vivian to take that over on the clerk side, and she has really done a great job. She's working with the consultant on a quarterly basis at a minimum. We're getting reports. We're seeing where our claims were. For probably, a big portion of my beginning here, I didn't know how many claims we had. And so Vivian has really kind of taken charge of that and really trying to manage that. And we're working better as a team and holding people accountable and educating and making sure that we're trying to limit some of these claims that affect, our costs and your costs. So we're really looking at that a lot more as well.
CRA. Talked a little bit earlier that the CRA has money for projects. So it's got a $7.7 million budget. The miscellaneous of $1.1 million is projected, but not definite money. There's money in there that we expect the county to give us if we move forward with the Oval About. And there's also money in there if we decide to sell Building 801. So if those two things don't happen, we won't spend that money. But it's just there as potential planning.
Could that money go for the Oval About?
You'll see it in a second.
Okay.
So there you've got the expenditures. You do have some personnel costs. We do have an administrator and a marketing and project manager. Operating costs.
And real quickly on the person, what's also happening that we haven't done before is we pay for the town manager, who's also the executive director of the CRA, we pay for all of that out of general fund. So while I'm working on the CRA stuff, the general fund or property taxes are essentially paying for me to work on economic development with the downtown. We've said that's not kind of fair. Let the CRA help pay for some of that cost so we can move, do some more with the general fund dollars. So we've cost shifted some of those dollars back to CRA so that my costs are covered under that. And we also pay for a code enforcement officer out of that position, out of that fund as well.
Just out of curiosity, do you know what % of your time is devoted to CRA?
The percent of time?
Yeah. Just to know how to allocate from the general fund to the
It's a
CRA.
lot.
Well, a lot. 10%? 30%?
It's a lot.
Okay. These are budget numbers. The word "a lot" does not show up on.
What did we allocate?
I believe 25%. I believe 25%.
5%? I'm just curious. I'm not questioning.
Yeah, one of the things that we need to do is we need to actually have an independent analysis to do that, and do that for pretty much what the commission's time is, what my time is, what Barbara's time is. We need to do that in the future, and so we're probably at the low end.
And is that part of the salary study you're
No, that'll be something
separate,
totally
understood.
separate. Yeah.
So on the CRA expenditure side, personnel costs are higher than 26 because we only had a part-time administrator, and then that person was gone for several months, and the project coordinator hadn't been there for a whole year. So now we're again budgeting for a whole year. Code enforcement has been consistent in there. Operating expenditures haven't changed very much.
And I hope you guys have had a chance to see some of the social media posts and how we're promoting the downtown. I know that the mayor brought it up, I believe, the other day. We're doing so much more than we have in the past in really promoting the downtown. Our administrator and our coordinator, along with PBSO, are touching every business. I've asked them to touch every business in our CRA at least twice a year so that they know who we are, they know about our grants, they know about our programs, they know about our activities, and we're starting to feature them in videos. I know the mayor's done that in his personal. We're going to keep doing that, and we need to do that more often. And so that new position has been very beneficial for us in being able to promote. Now, hopefully at some point, we can use that position in a different way, and the businesses will have the ability to hire people to do that. But right now they're struggling, and we're trying to help.
How do you assess your success for your efforts? How can you show tangible success, any kind of tangible success from the time and expenditures that you're putting into the CRA?
Right now, I think that's hard to do because we're still changing the way I think our culture has been in how we manage that area. We're looking at events that we've never had downtown. I think when we see more events happening, you see what happens with the Rust Market. Although that's a private exercise or a private event, we've been part of that. I think when you can bring 3,000 people, down, on a Saturday morning, that's success. I think as we grow, it'll be, of course, the goals are we need to meet our master plan that the commission and the board have set. And we haven't met that yet. We haven't achieved those goals. But as we do, we'll announce those, we'll celebrate those. At the end of the day, true success is going to be when we're complaining that there's no parking.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Those are the comments you want to hear. There's no parking, right? charge $10. Yeah, $10.
In the CRA budget, in their grants and aids line, which I'm sorry, I'm skipping down, but in the grants and aids line, there's $1.9 million, of which is $1,095,000 for grants. It includes the grants that are already in process, and it includes significant money for new grants. We want to make sure that we are working very hard to spend those dollars where it will do good, and those facade improvements are starting to make the downtown town look very nice.
And the thought is that if people are reinvesting into their properties, then people want to keep up with their neighbors. You know, not only is it going to attract new business, but hopefully, you know, the people around them will want to do it as well. And then, of course, the increase in building valuation or property valuation will hopefully be seen, and we'll be receiving not only additional dollars on the town side, but then also on the county side. So the more that we reinvest in our community, we're hopefully doing that as an investment that we get back in additional TIF dollars that help us to continue to grow. Because again, our CRA is only there for a couple more years. You know, it's only there for about 13 more years. And Barbara, if you go back to the revenues, I just want to be really clear about this, because I've heard this and I want to make sure everyone understands. If we did not have a CRA, yeah, that $2.4 million that the transfer from the general fund would be in the general fund, coffers. But because we have that $2.4 million in the CRA, and we were designated as a CRA, we now get that $1.2 million in county dollars. Those county dollars would never be used here. We now get to use those dollars here in our district. Those are the dollars that district is paying to the county. It's kept in the CRA, so it can be reinvested. So instead of a $3 million opportunity to grow and make improvements in our CRA, we would only have that $2 million. So is essentially a 50% increase in investment on an annual basis worth it to have a CRA? I would suggest that that's going to pay for basically a big part of the roundabout. You know, in 1 year, another year it's going to pay for the improvements. You know, the 500. I think we have $500,000. We took it down from $1 million. Maybe it's $750,000 for 10th Street. Another year it's going to pay for that. So these investments into our downtown essentially are being paid by the county tax dollars that would have been spent anywhere else in the county.
No argument that having a CRA is spectacular. Something I'm curious about from a municipal leadership perspective. Is it a best practice to have, even in a small town, to have the commission members the same as the CRA board?
I'll say whether it's a small town or a big town, I would say yes.
It's healthy.
Yes, absolutely. And the reason, now the CRA board, I think, is eligible to have 2 members of the public as well, by statute. The reason why I think it's absolutely the right way is because if the commission appointed somebody, what accountability do they have back to the residents or to those people in the CRA? There's no election for those folks. There's no real accountability. The community elects your commission, and essentially you're electing your CRA board as well. So there's real viable and accountability back to you all. So that my answer is yes. And that's just my history and my experience in being in this. I've seen it both ways. Doesn't mean that it's going to go south if there's an appointed board, but I think it just builds trust and accountability.
I can't help but think about the analogy to P and Z. Those are not elected positions, those are appointed positions.
But they're not making decisions, they're making recommendations.
Recommendations, yeah, okay, fair enough.
You know, you would have $7 million spent by a non-elected
Yeah,
body.
by non-elected body.
And that's accountability when you're electing someone to spend that $7 million for you.
Good answer.
I try.
Ms. Monfontaine, did you have a question? Oh, I saw movement, so I wasn't sure.
It was me. I did look into that because I was curious about that as well. Because even on every agenda for the CRA, it still says vacant on those two positions. I think Dr. Stark was on here for quite a considerable amount of time. He retired. And then I believe it was Carmen from one of the local businesses, and they closed. And so it still says vacant. So I did a little research into that because I was curious if it is standard. And most of the municipalities do have their commission as also their board members for their CRA. So that was something that I was curious about and had looked into. And so it is common practice to have the commission be the board members for the CRA.
Okay. And just following up on that, since there are two members available, two vacant slots for people to participate, is that process for appointment the same as any other board for Lake Park?
I believe so. Here comes, I was waiting for her to come out.
Hi.
Wow, geez.
Hello. I have been here. So the process for the CRA board by state statute is that members can be appointed by the town commission, but they have to either be residents within the CRA or own a business within the CRA. And so we have it available, and it's on purpose that we keep listing it as vacant for that reason. But those are, by statute, the reasons why that those two positions have not been filled.
Spectacular insight. Is there a program to reach out to people who live in the CRA district about opportunities to serve? Has there been a reach out? Well, where did you go so far?
I think we always have opportunities for people to participate. Can we do it? Can we do more? Probably.
I'm only tagging on what I heard on Wednesday night, that there was a CRA district resident who was unaware of the responsibilities of the tax distinction between being in the CRA.
I know what you're
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so, and that is probably as symptomatic of other residents who don't know the same information.
Yeah.
And if they don't know that very fundamental information, I'm not sure that they're going to know much about opportunities to serve on the CRA.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing these touches, at least with the businesses, and we're doing more with the social media. So that is something that certainly, Leanna, we can do a social media post, and there are vacancies, and within the CRA, tell people what those boundaries are, and say, hey, if you live there, and when we're talking with the businesses, we certainly can advocate. If you have an interest, come.
Yes, we had a discussion about it after the meeting, about that resident side of reaching out within the CRA boundaries.
Yeah.
So, cool. Thank you.
Notice how quickly Vivian left after that. Huh.
She's hiding in there,
Yeah,
snacking.
she took off.
And
I'm done.
Got her coffee. Back to the expenditure side. In the improvements other than building or in your capital outlay, we've got $4.1 million in there, of which 1.5 is tagged as the oval about. There are other projects in there. Sometimes it's just saving dollars toward the future, and other times it's for intent to use in that fiscal year. So I'll tell you what a couple of those things are. I said the 10th Street Oval About, a butterfly garden in the Foresteria Swale and down at the downtown parking area, continued work on the Burt Bostrom Master Plan, moving forward with implementing roadway improvements, sidewalk improvements, LED signage. There was a presentation at the CRA meeting on Wednesday night showing some potential signs. We've allocated money to start purchasing or purchase those signs. 10th Street South streetscape. We've budgeted $250,000 this year and $250,000 next year. Since that project is scheduled to finish in September, that's what we were kind of imagining what would happen. Burt Bostrom, master plan improvements, working to house the police athletic league at the park and their after-school programs there. And then because we were budgeting to sell the 800 building, we were setting aside the money we would receive from that as a potential new purchase. Again, should the board agree.
And I want to say, just real quickly on the 800 building, the CRA board doesn't have to sell that. The idea was we were presented with a proposal that would activate that building more than what we're doing. We shouldn't have a city office or a town office there, on a building where it could attract people, have people sitting outside, eating, walking to the business, walking to other businesses. CRAs do that so that they can then, attract people there who want to buy it, and then they sell the property. They advocate it for a use that they want to have accomplished. You see it in Delray quite often. City Place was that way. If you guys remember, 30 years ago, it was just a bunch of different parcels. The city and the CRA put that all together, and now you have this incredible area of West Palm. So the idea when we say we're going to sell a property or buy a property, or we're looking at it, the intent isn't to keep it forever. The intent is, let's activate it, let's promote it, and then if someone wants to come in and buy it, then great, as long as it meets the needs of the master plan. Now, if someone wants to buy it for the property that we're looking at for a big chunk of money, and we can't buy it because we can't afford it, then great. That's more TIF dollars back to the CRA. But by us having an interest in things sometimes, it sometimes also promotes other people having an interest in it. So there's a strategy to it rather than, us, just wanting to buy a property and be a landlord. That's not the intent. The intent is, how do we survive after the CRA goes away? And that's something that's serious because we have to fund these things. We're funding policing services downtown in the area. Who pays for that after the CRA goes away? There needs to be a plan today to be able to pay for those things in 14 years. And if we don't start thinking about it now, it's going to happen, and then it's going to be on the backs of the residents to deal with it, or it's going to go away. And so we need to be thinking about these things. One of the things I've asked Leanna as a CRA administrator is just look at a Main Street program. I used to be a Main Street director. It's made up of volunteers to help with events, to promote these districts. That's what we're going to have to probably depend on when the CRA goes away, because we're not going to have the funding for staffing to do that anymore. So if we don't start looking for the revenues to start paying for those things now, then it's going to fall on our town residents backs in the future. So that's all the conversation was the other night, was can we have the opportunity to start having that dialogue? Now, the vacant property or the grass property, it's, the 801 property, it's not to buy that building. I think there was some misunderstanding because it's platted as one piece of property. We're not buying the built building. The intent would be only to buy the green space that we use for our town green. We need a space so that we can have events. If we want to be a viable downtown, we need to have a place that's safe for our community to have events, to bring them. And if we don't do that, then we're just going to continue doing the same thing that we've always done. Hope that people are safe, hope that events come down, but where are they going to go? We're going to close the street. We saw that there was some revolting in that. But if you look at Delray and some of these areas, you look at West Palm, they're closing streets all the time. So, and the businesses are doing incredible. They want to see these things happen, but we need a safe place as well. Look at the holiday event and how successful it is in that space. So that's all we were doing the other day. But if we don't start asking these questions, and if we don't start looking at these things differently than we always have, then we're always going to have what we've always had. So that's all we were asking the CRA board the other day was, would you allow us to go and have that conversation and see what it brings? Doesn't mean that anything's going to happen, but again, where are these revenues going to come from if we don't start talking about opportunities? We're doing it with the P3, right? That's what the P3 was about. Bringing revenues to the town to support the cost that the town had. Same concept, nothing different. But again, if someone wants to buy that building and buy it for a lot more than we're willing to buy it for, great. That's going to help us pay for rent or something for the CRA office with the additional TIF dollars that are going to come in anyway. But the only idea was, can we activate these places and these spaces so that we continue to bring new people downtown? So. Oh.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment, exactly what you were just referring to, the 801, the green space. I was watching it on YouTube at home, so I was yelling at my TV, no, that's not what the building is attached to. It's just a green space. You brought up a really good example. My family, my parents, and my sisters have lived in Delray for like 35 plus years, and there's a nice little area that you probably are familiar with, the Pineapple Grove area. It's an open green space. They have the steel drum bands there. That would be a good idea that, Mary had brought up earlier. The Christmas event, that is such a fantastic event. So it is opportunity for us to bring revenue to the local businesses and to the town, because if you're going to lease out some of this space, if it's a green market or, maybe a small little car show or some kind of an art event, it's a positive. And I think there was some, short-sightedness when they were talking about, the additional maintenance, but those costs could be incorporated into the revenues that we would generate from having that space. I think it's a fantastic idea. It's very underutilized. It's been sitting there. I'm not a long-time resident. I'm only here 8 years, but just to see how it has grown, that the town has been able to use it on a lease basis. If we own that green space, the opportunities would be endless. And the CRA is going to end, it's going to sunset, but we still will have that opportunity to have that space. The town's not going to go away. We're not sunsetting. We're going to be here hopefully for hundreds of more years, and to have those kind of, places that is also a town-owned place, I think it has endless possibilities to bring in additional revenue to cover those costs that, some of the residents voiced concern of, at the meeting. I think it'll well pay for itself and benefit to the residents and to attract other, communities to say, hey, let's go to Lake Park and look what they're doing. They have this great, they have a steel band in their green space, so they have this great green market, or there's an art festival, and then the Christmas thing. That wasn't just all Lake Park residents. The whole light display, all of the people that attended that I think was attended by some of our surrounding communities, and
that's right.
That's a positive for us to move forward in Lake Park. And to touch on the 800 building, I've always been an opponent to not selling that building. I think it has some of the historical charm everybody talks about when they talk about what they want the downtown area to look at. We're in a dispute now over the 918 building. That was the only last remaining commercial building on Park Avenue that is 100 years old, but if you look at the 800 building, it's built in, I believe, in 1962. So I'm, 65, so it's 64. So I think it has a lot of historical value. It matches Town Hall, it matches the clock tower, the fire station. So I visualize it, and you just brought up my point exactly. If we use it as some kind of a center for the town to attract other businesses that want to come to the CRA, it's kind of like a welcome center. Operate something out of that. It could be redesigned. I think one of the commissioners mentioned the wall on the east. It's just a blank wall. You can put in a window or two, to kind of brighten it up.
Or a mural.
Redesign the interior to reflect a little bit more about a welcome to the community. If you know anything about Vero Beach, they had an old building that I don't know if it was trucked over there and what year it was, but they put it closer to their marina, and they use it as a welcoming center. And you just touched on the point, it's all operated by volunteers. So even if it is something that the CRA doesn't want to live in or utilize permanently, if we could use it for other town functions and fill it with volunteers, make it part of the town as we can.
I could tell you that if the CRA board does decide to go forward with it, one of the things, and I think we put this into our specs, is that the CRA would have the first right of refusal to buy it back. And I'm sure that we would probably build into any of those documents that, we would want to see the same character of the building retained and those
Right.
types of things. So that's where the benefit of owning the building, if you ever do get rid of a building or a property, is that you get to control a little bit of what happens based on who you sell it to.
Right, and there was, I think, only one person submitted the application in the very small time frame. I think 30 days was not realistic for everybody to get involved. And, if you're purchasing a building, there's a lot of documentation that, the purchaser has to go through. That particular unsolicited proposal, they had several months to be able to prepare. There was another resident, a local business owner, had put in I guess didn't meet the deadline. Jesse Furman, who we just referred to earlier, he would keep the charm and character. He wanted to incorporate a part of the building, to be a tribute to our 100-year, achievements in, the history of the town. So if we could, have some of those opportunities with the first right of refusal.
And that's what we built into the
so
specifications to purchase.
I'm really happy to hear that,
Yeah.
because I think there are other opportunities for the building besides, just making it something that it isn't. And I
Yeah,
love the way it is.
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
it.
I think
like
I
seeing
think
it.
there's
Me smile.
without speaking for the CRA, I think that was kind of some of the direction is, we want to have something that's going to activate the area, but also keep what we've built there. So
Yeah, even on Atlantic Avenue, there's an old gas station. I forget what the name of the restaurant is, Gasoline Alley or something. And, it still looks like that.
It's
but
open
it's not,
air, yep.
Yeah, it's a
There's
whole
bands
different
and-
use.
yep.
Exactly. So I think we can look to other successful, downtown areas. I think Boynton Beach is doing a really great job. Delray is doing a really great job. Some other communities to our north, downtown Stewart, but they're not tearing them down and building these high rises. They're utilizing some of the charm and the historical.
in fact, we asked the executive director of Delray to review our proposal so that a lot of the things you're talking about are expected from any of the proposals that come in. So that's exactly why we looked at successful,
Right. In
CRAs
Lake
to help
Worth-
us with developing
Or
our.
they have the, what do you call it, the Antique Row. A Miami developer just came in and purchased a lot of those buildings, and they're not going to tear them down and build high rises. They wanted to build kind of like little more chic, restaurants and little boutique stores. and keep the look of that downtown, the Lake, what's that, Lakeview, Lake Drive in Lake Worth, to, kind of resemble what the residents expect instead of redoing and rechanging everything. I think sometimes it's not like rebuilding the wheel. We're just working with what we already have and making it better, because we do need better.
Yep.
And I think sometimes it's good to just keep some of the charm, particularly to that building. It could be the only one we have left if something goes south with the 918 building. So that's my comment. I'm sorry, took up too much time.
Any other CRA questions? In Wednesday night meeting, we showed this various millage rate chart, and then the accompanying one that talked about what you would save if our millage rate was reduced and at different levels. So attached to the packets that are over there is a little bit larger version for the over 30 eyes. And additionally, in that packet, there's also a full listing of all the positions with their costs, their personnel costs, or the related personnel costs. It's not pretty because it's just a work base, but it's got everything in there. So you don't have to flip through multiple budgets to see all the positions. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out. Oh,
Do you,
I think we're off, Bill. I think we're off. I think Vivian cut us off. If Vivian's out, cut off.
Are you still live? Okay, great. First, when I was working, I had, in my working life, I had responsibilities for 2 counties in a state position and large budgets like this. And so the complexities of it all is dramatic. The first thing I want to say is I think you guys have done a spectacular, absolutely awesome job of converting the way budgets were presented in the past and budgets are being presented today. Absolutely impressive. And I know from firsthand that what it takes. And I had a lot more staff working on budgets for me, even I was a boss, than you do. So I really appreciate what's happening here. It strikes me like a faucet on what numbers you're going to use. And the faucet is a balance between the commission's needs and grant funders and residents and the state and the county and insurance demand. It's like a faucet, trying to get it as right as possible. It's impossible.
It is.
If you only take a short view. If you take the long view, and I think this is what this is all about, that you'll get to where you want to be by that faucet, making it a little bit easier to manipulate the faucet than you have in the past. So my kudos and my congratulations on your work. First. Number 2, just a quick comment about the 3% merit on top of a COLA. In my previous positions, when we had to, when the state and the counties that I worked for had to do budget cuts, we went through all this analysis stuff, and at the end of the day, we found that cuts to staff were partly determined by the level of respect that the staff felt they were getting to begin with. That there was a positive working environment. That there were these extra days off like we give on July 4th, and these extra days that the commission agrees to is a very nice complimentary, positive message to the staff that we know that they work hard, and that there's this deep appreciation for the working environment that is created. And then finally, that staff feel like they make a difference, that their jobs matter to others. So that even if they had to take a % cut, 1 year, maybe one on, one off, one on, for merit raises, not COLA, for merit raises. It not only helped the company, which was either the state or the counties, but it was a lesson in humility that our staff would take such cuts so long as the ingredients of the level of respect they were getting, the positive working environment, the extra things that we give them during the week, during the year that it's not planned, like those extra days off, and the feeling like that they make a difference, made it palatable to them. And if they felt that way, they could contribute to the financial stability of whatever county or state I was working for. So I want to lay that message after complimenting you. And then finally, this event, like what the mayor has done on his breakfasts and Hensley has done more formally now, this opportunity is awesome. It's spectacular. And it's fundamentally driven by dialogue. That's what's missing in this small town. Enough opportunities for dialogue. So I appreciate the staff coming out on Saturday for as long as they have. I appreciate your participation on a Saturday. But let it be known that this is something that the residents, as far as I can tell, I don't speak for residents, I speak with them to the degree that I can. I think this is exactly the kinds of things, the opportunities to hear what we have to say when two heads are better than one. And so thank you and have a great weekend and appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we adjourn.